Hey YouTube, it's Jaser, and today I will be breaking down a mix from one of my songs called AM. I will be going over each track and I'll explain what I did to each track. So let's get right into it. To start, I will give you a small snippet of what the song sounds like, so here we go. So that's how it sounds like. So let's get started by looking at the main elements of the song. So in this case, it's going to be the kick, or the drums, I guess. So I have a kick. Oops, there's a hi-hat. So I have a kick, claps. Then that's just using the ultra beat here. I've got all of these effects here, so I'm going to turn all of these off and we're just going to go one by one and see what it adds. So here it is by itself. It's a little quiet, but if we add this here, the overdrive, it's just adding a little bit more volume to that. Sounds a little bit more punchier, a little bit kind of distortion a little bit, but not too much. We have this here, kind of just taking down some of the sustain in it. We have the channel EQ, which is, let's see, here it is. So as you can see, I kind of boosted this here just to bring out a little bit more of that click sound that you get from the kick. So without it, it's just a little bit too boomy for what I want. Sounds good, but in context with the mix, let's bypass that. I also have a C4 multiband compressor here. So if you take a listen to this one here, all it's doing is just compressing that low and kind of the mid-range a little bit, about 3 dB. So just to bring down the boominess again of that kick. So bypass, and then with it. And just make sure you're listening through good headphones, just so you can hear what the differences are whenever I turn off a plugin. And then there's also a limiter, just to prevent it from going a little bit higher. So yeah, there's that. Then another section of drums here. So they're just using the Addictive Drums plugin that I have, and it's going. I just added another kick, and then a snare to it. Oh, I'm sorry, a hi-hat. My bad. So I just added a hi-hat to that, and then a kick. The kick is very quiet, but again, it adds like high end that I kind of want from a kick. That type of sound there. So let's hear with it and without in the mix. Oh, I'm sorry, with the drums here. So. Okay, so there's that. Now we move over to the piano. This is just a piano I played, and it just sounds like this. And it just goes like that throughout the whole song. Same with the bass. And so those two instruments here is what I call the motor of the song. So it just drives it, and it goes throughout the whole song from beginning to end. What I did for the piano here, I just compressed it a little bit. It's about 2 to 1 ratio. Then I also have a dry mix, which is I'm just using it for panning. I'm gonna put about here. Yeah, just about there. There we go. Just using that for panning. I like to use that instead of the panning down here. Depends on the type of instrument, the type of mix that you're going for. You either use this or you use the panning down here, which I'll show y'all later why I use that. But let's move on to the bass down here. I'm just using some EQ just to bring down again that low end here. So what I like about Pro Q is that you can kind of isolate the bands that you're EQing. So in this case, I'm taking off this right here. So it sounds good by itself. It has a lot of low end when I take off the EQ, but when I add it back on, it does take a little bit more low end, but it adds to the mix, if that makes sense. So you're taking off and it kind of adds. It's not too overpowering. It's not overpowering the kick and any other low information that I have in this song. Alright, and then I'm also using a little bit more compression here. It's actually quite a lot. But if you can listen closely, it has like a pumping effect that I wanted for this song. So it's side chained to the kick here. So whenever the kick plays, and without it, so that adds it just makes it sound a little bit better, and the frequencies don't overlap with the kick and the bass too much. If you have that kind of pumping effect going, it's used a lot on EDM, but I also use it in this type of music. So next we'll move on to the violin. And if you can see here, same thing, I'm using this dry mix plugin instead of using the pan pod down here. I'll go into a little bit of detail to why I use that instead of this down here. So whenever you're panning using this pan pod down here, you lose a little bit of information because all you're doing is turning down whatever side that you're panning to. So right now it's normal, but if I pan to the left, I lose the information that's coming from the right, depending on how much I move it to the left, and vice versa. So if I don't want to lose any of that information from the instrument that I'm playing, I use this dry mix plugin, which basically just moves the whole sound either left or right depending on where I have it panned to. And if you want me to make a separate video explaining this, please let me know in the comments and I will explain that in more detail. But let's move on to listening to how that sounds. So it's just those staccato violins and just gain, just bringing it up quite a lot, just because it was very quiet. It was recorded pretty quietly. So, and if you notice here, if you haven't noticed already, I have, these are just all audio tracks, and what I've done here is if I press the hide button, I actually recorded all of these instruments using MIDI instruments. So I have my addictive keys here for the piano, and all I did was selected it and press bounce in place, and it just bounced it down to audio tracks. Okay, so now we'll unhide this and move on to the next instrument. So the next one is the stripping effects. Well, I just called it that, whatever. Kind of like how that goes from kind of left, right. So what I've done here, just taking down the low end. So this is what I took out. All that low end information that we don't need for this type of sound. So just take all of that out. Then there's some delay going in there. So as before, after. Then I've also added a little bit of reverb, which just adds more of that space. And if you notice down here, I have buses, or a bus. I have a bus going into bus number 3, which is my reverb. So all of these instruments are going into the bus number 3, which is my main reverb. So we'll just take a listen to that before we continue to the next track. Right here. So all of the instruments, or most of the instruments, I don't think these are going in there, but most of the instruments are going into this reverb. And for that reverb, I'm just using the chroma verb, adding a little bit of lows, highs. Okay, so then if we move on to the next track, we have this here. So if you can tell, on this track I am using the pan knob. In this one I'm not using the dry mix plugin, just because I like how it sounds like this. I don't want all the information going to the left at 18%, so I have the channel EQ, just taking out the low end of that, adding a little bit of 3K, and then we have chorus effect, so just turn off and on. Then we have a spreader, just spreading out the sound a little bit. And then this pedal board is just experimenting with sounds. I just found out that this sounds pretty good with it, so it doesn't add much, but it adds a little bit of texture that I want for this type of sound. Then we have some delay just going in there a little bit. So vocal number 1 is this. I have an S1 imager going in, just adding a little bit of width. Space Designer, adding that reverb in there, and of course going into the main reverb. So next one is going to be the vocal number 2. This one's a little bit more centered, but I'm just adding a little bit of reverb. And then the angelic choir, or the third one. So this one we have some gain, just boosting it up about 5 dB. Some reverb going in there. So then we have this Greg Wells centric, voice centric plugin. All I'm doing is adding a doubler to that, just a little bit, a little bit more reverb and a little bit of compression. So before and after. And then some more widening for that vocal. So before and after. It's already pretty wide with the reverb that I have going on with these two plugins, but just adding this here adds a little bit more wideness. And then all together, we'll just do a bypass of all of the plugins for the vocal. So I think that sounds pretty nice when in context with the mix. So now let's go down to this bus here. All I'm doing is summing all 3 of those vocals into one bus and just processing it all together. So I'm just taking out low end and boosting a little bit, not too much to do on that, but I just cut that low end just to make way for the kick, the bass, and all those instruments that are down there. I don't want the vocals interfering with all of that, so I just cut it all out. Some saturation, it doesn't add much, but it adds what I was looking for, so I'll just do it before and after on that. It kind of adds a little bit more high end, more air, I guess you could say, to the vocals, which sounds really nice for this track that I'm doing. So those are the vocals. And let's move on to the guitar. So this guitar, I just recorded it using a DI and my Fender Strat. So it sounds like this. Oops. Listen to that. Oh, my bad. There we go. So that's with processing on. This is with it all off. Turn that reverb off too. So it's pretty dry. It sounds okay, but I feel like I should have added a little bit more. So I did this. I added a virtual amp, just a stock amp plugin from Logic. SM57. Just added some reverb, a little bit of EQ here, and then some effects right here too. So here's with and without it. So knowing a lot about mic placement is pretty important. So let's just move this around and kind of experiment with it. As you can tell, it changes drastically if I move it from the center of the speaker to the outside. And I can make a whole video of this, but basically I just wanted it to go outside and kind of have like an ambient type of sound. I didn't really want it too direct, but I liked how it came out. So next we move on to the side Q. I love this EQ for guitar. All I did was boost the low end a little bit, boost the mids at about 1K, the highs, and then use the drive knob to just bring it down. So I think it sounds good without it by itself, but when you add it to the track, I kind of like having that on, so let's take a listen to that. It's not too much that you can hear there, but it basically just brings that down the volume a little bit. I can probably put it up a little bit more, but that's how I like it. So next we move to the compressor. This one is a little bit stronger than what I did for the piano. This one's about 4:1, and just making it up to 2 dB. So there's the guitar. And then let's move on just to the last two, just some effects that I have going on here. So this is just a crash from a drum kit. I just recorded that real fast, and it's just that, nothing special. And then we have this. This is just a backwards snare. Oops. Select one. There we go. This is just a backwards snare. I just created it into an effect that I use. I just saved it on my files and use it on most of the tracks that I have recorded. So no processing going on there. So here it is in context with the mix. We just loop this here, and we'll take a listen to what that sounds like. So without the effects. So this is actually transitioning from to the chorus. So I just wanted to add a little bit more, just so it doesn't sound like boring transition. So here it is. It's not a perfect transition, but I like it, so we'll keep it that way. I'll probably change it up a little bit, add more effects to it. Yeah, so next, let's move over to the mix bus. I have a little bit of processing going on here. If you could tell already, if I play the whole track again, just in the chorus here. Let's go to this one. Just keeping an eye out for this here. It's already a pretty loud track. I don't usually mix this loud, but usually I mix at a level between -6, -5, so I can leave headroom for the mastering process. But in this case, I'm mixing pretty loud, and I'm just adding the ozone plugin here, and just adding a little bit of EQ. So we'll bypass it, and let's see if you can hear the difference. It's very subtle, but I'm just taking down this here, about 500 hertz, and then about 1K. That's pretty much it. So before, after. I just feel like it cleans it up a little bit more, kind of takes that out. So what I like about ozone is that you can isolate frequencies, and you can listen to what you want to take out. So let's play this one more time. And here I'm just pressing down the option key. You can just listen to the frequencies, listen to any nasty frequencies you want to be taking out. So in this case, I wanted this out of the way. It's kind of that boxy sound, and that kind of fixed my mix there. So I might mess with the low end a little bit, but right now it sounds pretty good. But yeah, guys, that is pretty much it for this video, guys. If you have any questions about anything I went over, please let me know in the comments. Also, any future videos that you guys would like to see, mixing tutorials, plugin tutorials, plugin reviews, or any other videos, another mix breakdown, whatever you guys would like to see next, please let me know, and I will catch you guys on the next video.